Today we're going to be covering a lot of things. We're going to be covering drug addiction. We're going to be covering family life. We're going to be covering a true and real life with Jesus and what that really looks like. Today, helping us go through that and sharing his testimony is my man, David Butler.
Good morning, Christian.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. And then my co-host here is Danee.
Nice. Glad to be here.
Good morning, Danee.
I was waiting for something about me not having a last name.
Yes. No, I'm going to move past that now. So let's go ahead and dive into this story and really God's story in your life, David. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do here, we're rolling, right?
Yeah.
All right. It's the cameraman across his camera. Yeah, we're rolling.
Coffee precedent.
Yeah, we need that. Cameraman needs a coffee stand. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to start just because, you know, the point of what we're doing here is we want to illuminate what God's doing in people's lives. And we see him moving in celebrities and people who have this secular kind of accomplishment. But he's no less moving in our lives, the regular people. So what's it like working in the pawn shop business and in that industry? It's one of the oldest industries here, right?
It is. The pawn shop is interesting. It's a family-owned business, and its age goes back decades. It's really pawning items is the first form of credit. It's a collateral-based loan. Mm-hmm. And today we have these TV shows about pawn shops and things that give people a sort of a stigma around that industry, that it's very aggressive or even kind of shady sometimes. But the truth is that I get to meet all different kinds of people from all walks of life. You know, some people just need to borrow a little money to pay their rent, but some people need to borrow money to make payroll. And so from a business aspect, I have an opportunity to impact a lot of people. Nice. But I also have the opportunity to see people a lot of times when they come to see me, they're not having their best day, obviously. So I get a chance to meet people who need witnessing to or need a word of encouragement or some ministering to.
Yeah.
And I try to take those opportunities too. You have to be careful, of course, and kind of read the situation. But I remember in those instances that my job is just to plant a seed, to plant a seed there.
Right. That's awesome. Danee, have you ever pawned anything?
No, I have not. But I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, what do I have in my garage? Because I'm getting ready to move. So, yeah.
Are you thinking about pawning something?
Pawning something, yeah.
I've never had to, but I always have a plan.
You know what has the most value?
I do. This keyboard has been on the pawn plan forever. Because it's like if everything goes down, I could maybe, I don't know, what do you think I'd get for the keyboard?
I would probably decline your keyboard.
You would decline it?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
No offense.
Well, there goes my plan.
So you're going to get a new plan.
Yeah. All right. Now I don't even know what I'm going to have to do. All right. And talk to me a little bit about having the kids, and those are some wide ranges there. But you have a built-in babysitter, is that true?
That's fantastic, yes, and I'm incredibly blessed. My oldest son, Christopher, is 17, and for a teenager, for all the options that are available to him nowadays, I feel blessed that he's a very good kid. He's an AB student. He's active in the youth group at church. He's great with his little brother and sister. That's awesome. And yes, he's an all-around good kid, and he's sure been a blessing to me. And for one reason is, I've been through lots of struggles, and as we get into my story, you'll hear about them. But Christopher is the oldest, and he has seen me and my wife too at our worst.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. And he could easily have taken a different direction, or ended up way differently. And we kind of joke around now and say that as hard as we tried to screw him up, God had his hand in the situation the whole time. Yeah. And he's turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful young man.
Now, I know that the drug that really took you down, as it takes down a lot of people, and it did myself as well, was methamphetamines.
Yeah, it sure was. And I was up in my mid-20s before, I encountered that. And the situation was, I worked in the restaurant industry, so that's a lot of long shifts, up on your feet. It's tiring work. It's also a lot of late night stuff. Nightlife, goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
And when I was introduced to the methamphetamine, I mean, it was like instant exercise. I thought it was great. I could work longer shifts. That meant more money. I've always been kind of a heavy guy. I started to drop weight real quick, and that was getting attention from the ladies. And from a worldly perspective, all those things were great. And, I remember thinking at one point, man, I hope I don't get hooked on this stuff. But it did the same thing to me that it does to everybody else.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody just do one line. They always come back for more. So you get into meth, it takes you, and there's usually a turning point with drugs, right? First off, we wouldn't do drugs if they didn't work, right? At least for a period of time, they work. And so it was working for you for a period of time. When did you start saying, well, this is not working like it used to?
Oh, very quickly. Very quickly I saw that. Meth is a very powerful drug, and I started to just dabble in it, and then, I never intended for it to turn into the habit that it did, of course. Right. And so then my first little bag or, little stash that I had was gone. I realized what the withdrawal might be like because I felt tired, of course, and I didn't understand how it was going to affect me. At first, I thought I was sick, that my body might have some kind of a sickness or something because I had no energy. Right. And but it didn't take long for me to realize that the key at that time was to not come down because that's when you would feel that low. Right.
Well, the beast of meth is that it's both psychologically and physically addicting. So you actually have a withdrawal symptom like you would with heroin or alcohol, where some other drugs maybe are just psychologically addicting, and so it's just more of a mental thing. But I can remember personally kicking meth or going through the withdrawal period, and I would have these intense dreams that I was falling, and the only way I could wake up would be to scream. And it was the worst experience ever. I even called the little hotline, and they were like, "Oh, you're just withdrawing, so you'll be fine." But yeah, definitely. And so that makes you go, I don't want to experience that again, so let's just go ahead and stay high, right?
Sure. Once you learn how bad the withdrawal is, the fear of that kept me using for probably a year or a year and a half, legitimately after I had the desire, and the want to stop using. It was the fear of that withdrawal. Right. And if you won't understand it if you've never been through it. But
well, tell me a little bit about that, about not wanting to do it, but doing it.
That's a difficult thing because it seems so counterintuitive to people. But you're right about it being physically addicting. Your head can be telling you, look, man, you've lost your house, cars, motorcycle, all the things that you used to take pride in, even relationships. I had become estranged from my family, and that was basically because of the shame that I was feeling.
Now, what about Jesus? When was the first time someone introduced you to Jesus? Now, you might not have met him that first time, but the first time someone introduced you to Jesus.
Well, I grew up going to church, but as a kid, it was just something I did because my mom said so.
Yeah.
During your during your time of addiction, did you ever think back to Jesus? Was it something that came back to your thought from time to time, or how did it play a role, if it did?
Oh, it surely did. It surely did. I remember one time there was a very, very serious situation in my life, and it's one of those unspoken prayer kind of things. I'll spare you the details, but I didn't know what else to do. I hadn't prayed in years probably, but the seriousness of the situation let me know that there wasn't a person that could help me. And so there was another person involved, and we held hands and just said the Lord's Prayer and asked for his blessing. And things worked out. That was in the throes of my addiction. It would still be a couple years before Jesus met me where I was at and really started to help to bring me out of that addiction. And for so many people who are addicts or have those type of problems, that encounter with Jesus came, from a jail cell.
So tell me a little bit about that. I know you were at that point. You had already hit some legal trouble, and you were in jail. Was it jail, or were you in?
Yeah, I was in the county jail.
Okay.
And I was preparing myself mentally to be there for quite some time because I had some priors, and like I had mentioned, I was estranged from my family. They had they were tired of bailing me out, and seeing the same cycle
Right.
going on. And I remember the chaplain in the county jail gave me a Bible, and he told me to start reading in John, and so I did.
Nice.
And it didn't take me long, and I mean just 30 minutes or so. And I said, well, I'm going to say this prayer. And I heard somebody say one time that there's really only two kinds of prayers: thank you, thank you, thank you, or help me, help me, help me. And, at the time, I was surely unworthy, but I prayed just out of brokenness and desperation, because I knew there wasn't a person, there was no one on earth that could help me out of that situation. And I prayed, and I know now out of spiritual maturity that this isn't the best way to pray, but I was like, God, if you get me out of this, I promise I will start living right.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how things happened. It was just a matter of hours from that point that my current wife, Ashley, she came, and my only wife too. I've only been married one time.
Nice.
Just want to throw that in there.
Nice.
My wife's parents came to bail me out, and we weren't married at the time. We were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and I didn't call them. I didn't call anyone, because I knew that people were fed up with my shenanigans.
Right.
And, she had reached out to them, and knowing very little about me other than I loved their daughter, they came and got me.
Right.
And it's just a matter of hours from receiving that Bible to when they were calling me out of that jail cell. And it changed my whole perspective. God showed out and showed his power, and that got my attention, because I thought, wow, if you can do this, I better keep up my end, of the bargain.
Set free, pulled from the sea, and you came and brought me in, defeated my sin and called me a friend. And now I'm alive in you, God. I'm in the family now, and I'm satisfied in you, God, 'cause your love is everything. Ooh, 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 ooh,
Well, I often think of, there's a period in my life when I took Jesus and I made him like a football, and I put him under my arm, and I just was like, come on, let's go. And so now here he is leading your life and plugging you into people that can be positive for you, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned that you came into this church that was pretty conservative, and here you are. I'm imagining at this point, you're probably not coming in with the clean cut look and the polo shirt, ready to serve on the usher team, right?
That's true. I was pretty raggedy. I definitely looked the part. I had long dreadlocks and a beard that had been growing for a year or better, and I was scrawny.
I've been growing this beard for a year, by the way.
I can tell. It's looking good too,
Yeah.
man. It's coming in nicely. And I definitely did not look the part, especially for what you would think of as a conservative Southern Baptist church.
Right.
But I wasn't shy with my situation, because I knew what I needed. I needed those people,
Yeah.
and thankfully, they acted just as you would hope they would. They loved me and encouraged me and sort of nursed me right back to health.
Yeah.
And we're still part of that church today.
Right.
And I've made some wonderful friendships there and people that I count as family.
no longer slave to sin and death. You step right down into my mess. You broke my chains and paid my debts, and clothed me in your righteousness. And my sin does not belong to me, 'cause the King of love has set me free, and he's taken off my filthy rags and brought me in the family. And now I'm alive in you, God. I'm in the family now, and I'm satisfied in you, God.
And just a side note, something kind of funny. One of the deacons now, who's kind of my age, he told me that when I first showed up, they were keeping a close eye on me because they thought I was casing the joint to maybe steal the sound system or something like that.
Right.
But it's, several years went by before he told me that.
Well, the thing I love and it's encouraging about that is that it's the importance of the church being that place where you can go no matter where you are in life, no matter who you are, and to be loved and accepted, right? I mean, I think, Danny, that's probably one of your things about church, and being a place where no matter who you are, you're welcome to come.
And I love hearing that. I love hearing that it was also a Southern Baptist church. We have a lot of people have a stereotype about that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are scared to walk into a church. I've had friends who are like, if they see choir robes, they turn around and run because they don't think they'll be accepted.
Right.
And so much of your story, there's beauty of God meeting you and people meeting you, and the openness of stereotypes just not being true.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's not so much the sin, it's the hidden sin, right? And so coming in there, and it's such a powerful thing that you're like, you knew innately kind of within you, you were like, I need to be upfront, I need to be bold, I need to be honest with who I am and where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And so they accepted you.
So you're right. I did have some intention, and I was very transparent. I told them where I was, what was going on with me. Mm-hmm. And, they still just continued to love me. Right. And I learned that you do have to use some discernment when you share details of your story with people, because there's some things that...
Discernment is, you have to use, how do we, what's the non-Christian word for discernment? Let's translate that for someone who may not.
Be wise.
Yeah.
Especially at first. Make sure you can trust a person before you share your dirt with them. I guess that's the that's the word.
I remember when I was after I first got saved, I was sharing a testimony at church on Sunday, and I confessed in front of the whole church that I had drank a 40 ounce, and the deacon afterwards said, "Hey man, don't do that again. You don't need to confess that in front of everybody. You could just tell me, and we would have been good."
I learned also that being transparent, especially where I was, I knew I needed help. And being transparent, I sort of learned that you could use that offensively, because when we meet, if I decide I'm going to share some details with you, if I tell you that I'm a recovering drug addict, or that I'm not proud of these things, but there was a time when I've been violent with my wife or my children. One time I set my own house on fire one time, and these were all drug-induced things. But if I share that with you, I can also tell you, but that's not who I am now.
Right.
Christ has made me a new creature, and because of that, anybody who wants to look down on you, if somebody came and said, "Danny, let me tell you about that guy that you were talking with on Monday," it takes the power out of that. You say, "I know. You told me that's what we were talking about."
Right.
And so you do have to be discerning, but it's sort of like the scriptures that says, "Oh, death, where is your sting?" You can take the shame and the sting out of those things by owning up to them.